Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are reviewing The Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne and starring Paul Giamatti. And the film basically follows Paul Giamatti's teacher, who is given the very thankless task of having to babysit students at this boarding school over the Christmas holiday because they can't go home for whatever reason. And he basically then gets stuck babysitting this one character along with the school's chef. And the film is about this dysfunctional relationship that starts to blossom amidst trauma and mishaps along the way. The Holdovers is a film that feels like Dead Poets Society meets something like Wes Anderson's Rushmore. Not in a very arty experimental way, but mainly through the humour and the dry wit and monotone sass that tends to come out of this student-teacher relationship. The film is deliberately given a bit of a vintage feel, like something from the 80s or the 90s. Everything from the colour palette to the cinematography to the soundtrack choices all give the film a very past feeling. It feels like we're watching something a bit retrospective, and is all the better for it. I think it gives the film a warmth, a sense of coziness, and just brings you back to an era of films that we don't see much of these days. But don't get me wrong, the film hinges entirely on Paul Giamatti, who I think is an absolutely underrated actor. I remember the first time I saw him in this low-budget B-list medieval action British film called Ironclad, and he just went 110% as this King John character antagonist. He was a scene stealer in a very average film, and that just kind of put him on my radar and has stuck with me since. He is incredibly good as this teacher who has the unfortunate combination of a physical deformity, hygiene issues through no faults of his own, and a bad relationship with his students. Whether it's the comedy or the drama, I think Paul Giamatti just gives this character dimensions. He becomes fully fledged, he becomes multi-dimensional. He's a very archetypal character who goes on a very archetypal journey. The film is very predictable in that way, but because of Paul Giamatti's performance, it comes across in a very, very human way. I can absolutely see why he's been nominated for an Oscar. It would not displace Cillian Murphy's performance in Oppenheimer for me, but it absolutely does deserve to be lauded and acclaimed nonetheless. When it chooses to be funny, this film is downright hilarious, mostly because of Paul Giamatti's performance. The man knows how to deliver a line, he knows which words to emphasise, which words to downplay, the way he can inflect his tone of voice, the physicality of his movements when he's trying to chase a student or repress rage. It's so phenomenal. There's an early scene in the film which is basically him delivering his final lesson before the holidays, and he was just delivering line after line with such ease. It was so smooth, so funny, and really set a precedent for the film that didn't always get matched, but never delivered a false beat along the way either. All the performances in this film were really strong, and they all had to be because it's quite a small cast. And because this is a predictable film that feels like something you've watched over and over again, the performances needed to stand out to give life to these characters, and they really did. The whole ensemble really kind of hit their marks. The setting of the film, the way that the film is shot to really embrace this school environment as an empty, desolate place that is this home, whether naturally or forced for a lot of the characters. It felt simultaneously like a prison, a burden, but a place they couldn't live without. The school itself really felt like it had dimensions in this film. It never feels like one of those films that feels like it's gonna give you a satisfying happy ending just because you want it. The film feels very real and does have a lasting impact because of that. I think The Holdovers will be something endlessly rewatchable. I've seen a lot of people call it a classic, you know, a bit of an all-timer, something they'll be able to watch over and over again, one for the ages. For me, it wasn't that. I don't think this film brought anything particularly new to the table. I think it brought out a fantastic performance that is absolutely an all-timer. This film was very good. I would fall short of calling it a classic. For me, it wasn't this 5-star masterpiece. It was a bit too long and it was a bit too conventional to really land with the emotional resonance that I think a lot of people felt from watching it. But if it was going to be a star rating for me, it would be 4 out of 5. Paul Giamatti's performance absolutely carries you through. The script is really funny. It is really well written, does not cave to being an overt comedy too much throughout. Maybe commits a bit too hard to trying to be a drama at times, but for the most part it strikes this perfect balance of being a very warm, very welcoming, comforting film, born out of tragedy, and encapsulating that tragicomic tone really well. It is absolutely one that I would recommend watching, so if you haven't seen it guys, check it out. If you have, do drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel. That's always a huge help for me. And in the meantime, I'll see you for the next vid.